So we are going to be going over the circle skills test. So the first question says, what are the radii of the circle shown with O as the center? So anything that goes from the center to an outside edge is going to be a radius. So we have 3 radii here, and the names of those radii are CO, JO, and QO. So the answer to this question would be B, because those are our 3 radii. Now notice that CJ is not a radius, and neither is QJ, because those don't go from the center to the outside edge. Also notice that everything that's a radius has O as one of its letters on the drawing. The next example reads, how do you find the radius of a circle when given the diameter? So since the diameter is all the way across the circle and the radius is just halfway across, that means that the radius is half of the diameter. So if we want to find the radius of a circle when given the diameter, we're going to do the last thing here. As it says, to find the radius, you need to divide the diameter by 2. The third question says, find the length of the diameter of the circle. Now we know that the diameter is all the way across, and the radius that's given is just halfway across. So to find the diameter, we have to take the radius and multiply by 2, and 5 times 2 gives us 10, and so the diameter of this circle is 10 centimeters. The next question reads, the length of the diameter of a circle is 18. What is the radius? Well, like we just talked about, when we have a circle, diameter is all the way across, whereas the radius is just going to be halfway across. And so if I want to find the radius, if the diameter is 18, I have to divide the diameter by 2. 18 divided by 2 gives me 9. And so the radius of the circle is going to be 9 units. Now the next question says, the length of the radius of a circle is 5. What is the circumference of the circle? So we have 2 circumference formulas. Our first one is circumference equals pi times diameter, and the second one is circumference equals 2 pi r. Now since we're trying to find the circumference, we know we're going to use one of these 2 formulas, but then notice that they give us the radius. Because they give us the radius, we're going to use our second formula. Now to use this formula, all I have to do is replace r with what the radius is. So we're going to replace r with 5. So circumference is equal to 2 pi r, or 2 pi times 5, sorry. And then I simplify. Now notice that all of our answers are written in terms of pi, which means kind of like keeping pi in the equation, just like you would a variable. And so when we have a problem where we want to keep it in pi in just like a variable, we just want to multiply our numbers together to get our coefficient of pi, the number that comes before pi. 2 times 5 gives me 10, and so my answer is going to be 10 pi. So the circumference of the circle is C, 10 pi. Now the next problem, we're looking at a very similar example where we're finding circumference, but this time they're giving us the diameter. So it says the length of the diameter of a circle is 10. What is the circumference of the circle? So that means that I'm going to use my circumference formula that deals with diameter, since they're giving me the diameter. So we know that circumference is equal to pi times diameter. In this case, our diameter is 10, so circumference is equal to pi times 10. Now just like the last case, notice that our examples, all of our possibilities are written in terms of pi. So we want to keep pi in the equation just like a variable. But remember that just like when we have a variable, we want our number to come before the variable. And so we're going to write 10 as our coefficient of pi, the number that comes before pi. So our answer is going to be circumference equals 10 pi. So A. Question number 7 reads, find the circumference of the circle. Use 3.14 for pi. Write an integer or decimal rounded to the nearest hundredth as needed. So notice that we have a circle with the distance all the way across being 20 feet. Now keep in mind that this distance is our diameter, so our diameter is 20 feet. Now if I was going to find the circumference given the diameter, I would use my equation circumference equals pi times diameter. Now in this case, keep in mind that they say to use 3.14 for pi. That means that when I plug in 20 for my diameter, I also want to plug in 3.14 for pi. And we use that to estimate our value. So we replace pi with 3.14, we replace the diameter with 20, and then we just simplify. 3.14 times 20 gives us 61.8, and so our circumference is going to be 61.8 feet. For number 8, we're kind of getting to the problems where they're asking us about area. So it says the length of the radius of a circle is 5. What is the area of the circle? And we actually only have one area formula. It's area equals pi r squared. Now if they ever gave us the diameter, we'd have to divide by 2 to be able to plug in our value. But in this case, they give us the radius, so we can plug it right in. Now something else to notice is that all these examples they give us are in terms of pi, which means I am not going to put 3.14 in for pi. I'm just going to keep pi in the equation like a variable. So I write area equals pi, and then r we're replacing with 5. So we take area equals pi times 5 squared. Now remember that in order of operations we do exponents first. So before I do anything else, I'm going to take 5 squared, which is 5 times 5, or 25. So now I have pi times 25. And then the very last thing I want to do is make 25 like a coefficient, because we're treating pi kind of like a variable. So I'm going to rearrange my numbers and write it as 25 pi. And so the area of this circle is going to be A, 25 pi. Number 9 reads the length of the diameter of a circle is 20. What is the area of the circle? Now again, just like the last one, we talked about how if we are trying to find our area, our only formula for the area of a circle is area equals pi r squared. So if they give us the diameter, before we can plug in, we have to find the radius. Now we know that the radius is half of the diameter. So if the diameter is 20, the radius is going to be 20 divided by 2, 10. So now that I have my radius, I'm ready to plug in. And notice over here that all of our answers are in terms of pi. So again, we're just going to keep pi in the equation like a variable. So area equals pi times the radius squared, so times 10 squared. We start off with our exponent just like the last example. 10 squared gives us 100. So we have pi times 100, and then exactly like the last few problems, we have to put our number first as our coefficient. So area equals 100 pi. So our answer to this one is going to be A, 100 pi. Okay, so our very last example is looking at finding the area, but this time we're using 3.14 for pi. So again, area formula is area equals pi r squared. And in this case, notice that they're giving us our diameter, our distance across the circle. So before I can plug in, I have to divide that by 2 to get my radius. 106 divided by 2 gives me 53. So that's what I'm going to be plugging in for my radius. Remember that we're going to put 3.14 in the place of pi, because we're not writing our answer in terms of pi. We're using 3.14 to evaluate our expression. So pi is 3.14, r is 53, so we're going to replace r with 53. And then we're going to simplify. Again, notice we have, if we read this, it's 3.14 times 53 squared. So we have multiplication, we have an exponent, but we have to do our exponent first. Now 53 squared gives us 2,809. And then I have to multiply my numbers together. So the area is going to be 8,820.26. And my units are yards squared or square yards. So my answer is 8,820 0.26, and in this case I didn't even have to round because I just needed to round to the nearest hundredth, and it's already to the nearest hundredth.